like?
Yeah. So, you know, that kind of comes back to, I think a lot of folks ask me all the time is, which slingshot should I get? You know, which slingshot's going to shoot best for me? I'm just like, you know, I could steer you towards something that I want to sell you. Or I could steer you towards something I think you might ought to have. But I think the slingshot itself is the least important part of the shooting process, the actual frame. What's important about the frame is, I was telling you today, that the frame needs to feel good in your hand. But beyond feeling good in your hand, it needs to be something that you want to hold and you want to get to know. And like with my slingshots, like this slingshot, I've made a ton of this same slingshot over and over. But at night when I sit down with my wife to watch TV and relax at the end of the day, this is on my stand next to my chair and I just pick it up and hold it. And I don't know why I hold it. I hold it while I'm driving, but what that does is I think it reinforces.
I used to sleep with mine, so I mean, we're talking insanity here, you know. You're talking, I'm still thinking of shooting at that target back there. You know that. You know there's steel balls in my pocket. I want to shoot that target. I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, but what's important about that is if you have a slingshot that you want to hold, that you want to get a feel for, by doing so, if it's something, and this is purely my own edification again, I think a pretty slingshot makes you a better shooter because you want to hold it, you want to admire it, you want to feel it, and when you do that, you have a sense of where it fits in your hand. So when you're out shooting, and if you pick up something you're shooting with your buddies or you're hunting, and a shot comes up, and you pull up, you get ready to shoot, you immediately know whether that slingshot's where it needs to be in your hand. And it's not because it inherently fits better, but it's because it's a slingshot that you want to hold and you want to manipulate. So find a slingshot that feels good to you, that you want to shoot, and make sure that your bands and pouch are the very best that you can shoot and that they're matched and they're balanced to one another. There's nothing worse for a shooter to have bands that are set up to shoot 44 caliber lead and they're trying to shoot 3/8 steel. And they're getting their hands beat all to crap and they're flying all over the place. Or, you know, one band is the tapers off. It's all in the bands in the pouch. So once you get your bands in your pouch, something that works for you, try to stick with it. If you like to shoot 3/8 steel and you've got a taper that you like, stick with it, because every shot that you take, it's like running water down a trench. By virtue of that water running in the trench, it's wearing away a little bit more of that trench every time and it's entrenching that trench. It's an instantiation of a trench. And by doing so, by shooting the same bands and ammo every time, every shot further deeply ingrains, you know, I saw the ball go in that arc. And, you know, I don't know what that distance was, but the next time you see something that has those same relationships, you know, you're looking at 3 or 4 different points, this amazing brain of ours makes those calculations. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah, but leading up to this event, that a lot of us, let's say a month before tomorrow, pick what they're going to shoot and stay with it, same type of bands, slingshot, forks, ammo, and that's going to be it at today, not be all over the map.
Yeah, find one. I mean,
It's the best way to do it. If you can stick with it, that's another thing. Trying to stick with one slingshot.
everybody wants to tinker.
Yeah, do that.
Love them all.
But, you know, as you get into it, I mean, folks ask me, you know, slingshots, you know,
20 favorite
you make it sound so
slingshots.
complicated. I'm like, well, it doesn't need to be complicated, but slingshots can be as infinitely complicated as your brain cares for them to be. And in doing so, if you're inclined to go that way, if you're a thinker and you're a tinkerer, I've got band sets that basically, and I can't quantify this with high-speed cameras or anything, but I've got a band set that I shoot 5/16 out of that has a similar trajectory as this one, which I shoot 7/16 out of, and I've got a band set that shoots 45 caliber lead at the same trajectory that shot the 5/16 steel. And I've just done that through trial and error on my own, so I can go play with the 5/16 steel in my everyday slingshot. It's cheap to shoot. But then when I go pick up my hunting slingshot, it's a lot heavier draw. But as far as point on, and I'm sure I'm aiming, I'm sure I'm having some relationship with my fork tip to my target, but it doesn't change. So you can get that particular. And you've got it, and everyone can change. I could give you my same 3 band sets, and it wouldn't shoot for any of you guys because it's tuned to my draw length, the way I release, the time that I spend at full draw, and you've got all these properties around rubber hysteresis.
So it's just constant trial and error until you
Constant
find what
trial and
feels
error.
right.
Yeah.
And what works.
And then as soon as you find what feels right, it'll all be wrong again.
Yeah.
Then that's what he touched on something before about the right slingshot. There is no right. It's just like all kids when they start off on the sport, they want the heaviest pull band set. Don't worry, or a bow hunter kid, I want the strongest bow. Doesn't mean the most speed. Doesn't mean the most speed. Doesn't mean the most accurate.
Yeah, but then aren't people generally, you talk draw pressure, confusing that with archery versus they not knowing slingshots, thinking like a crossbow or a compound bow, thinking like you just said. Most people think, oh, if it's 85 or 65, it's going to really, that apply to slingshots.
Yeah, he can comment on the archery. He knows a lot more archery than I do. But I'm just with the slingshots. I mean, that's what the first kid says. I even said it too when I was young. I want the strongest pull I can get. This and that. That's no good because you're shaking like an autumn leaf. It's like you can't get it
shaking like a dog shitting razor.
So that's when we're trying to get it out there and tell there's no perfect slingshot. There is a better band set for it than a super strong powerful one. There's no perfect band set either. Everything is different for each ammo. You just got to experiment. It's like it's a learning procedure for everybody.
Yeah, like last year at this tournament, I was shooting double TheraBand gold with a super aggressive taper, shooting 3/8 steel, and I was shooting like 235, 240 feet per second on a non-extended slingshot, which I thought was pretty hot, but it was pushing like a 20-pound pull. And this year, this stuff is shooting like 208, 207, 210, and it's maybe a 14, 15 pound. And, at the yardages we shoot at, it's not necessary. I mean, last year I was holding pretty much spot on at 25 yards. This year I might have to lift up a
Is that
pitch.
the thicker stuff, the 050?
I'm using the 40 this year. And last year I was doing TheraBand gold.
30. That's 30.
So, it's just all a matter of fine tuning. I gave up some speed for that lighter, and it's improved my shooting because I find that a lighter draw weight shows your flaws in release a whole lot quicker than a heavy draw weight, because a heavy draw weight snaps it out of your fingers. And wraps, which are nice. I always try to pay attention to grain if you want to do anything. Then once all the glue's dry, I come back in and take that chunk and make all the edges perfectly square. And this might be off right in here, but all that's going to get shaped down. So there's no need to create the actual shape before you put it on. It's just a chunk. And just make your chunk oversized. And what you're trying to do is, see the palm swell inside the chunk of wood. And make sure that you've got enough overall palm swell to find that shape that you want inside of it.
I noticed you have that one pinned. Is that just a preference?
Purely decorative.
Okay.
This is purely just for visual balance. And we were talking about pinning earlier, and I'll just throw it out while I'm here. So pinning is a huge double-edged sword that I'm always reticent to do with my slingshots, because we can, this slingshot was cut out from a template on a bandsaw or by hand. So being human, this is not a machine-cut piece. So there's some asymmetries here from side to side. And I guess where I was going there was that. Yeah, with the drilling the holes is that once you put that in there, your eyes, your perfect mind has this ability to see the symmetry in anything. We look at each other's faces, and we compensate for that asymmetry. But if we look at someone's face really close, look down the middle, see the center line. So once you put the pins in there, then it shows everything that's wrong with your slingshot immediately. If you never put the pins in there, you'd never see it. Because you've got all these other compound curves.
You're drawn right to it.
So with the pins, I always triple check my layout and my measurement. And I use a 0.5 millimeter pencil and lay it out, measure it multiple times from different angles, because you can never really tell quite if you're square across there. And then once you get it, drill a pilot hole first. And if your pilot holes are off, then you've got a little bit of room to go up to your final size, which is a real pain because then you have to lock it into a drill press, drill off center. But you can correct it. But if this is a 1/4 inch hole right here and I drill right off of my marks and it's off, then it's just off. And you will see it immediately. And that was actually a little bit off. You guys can see it. That one's off center.
I don't know. To me, it looks like it's poured. So beautiful. Look at it. Poured, and that's it. Done.
I got a question. If you shoot the tubes, the regular tubes, it comes on the slingshot. No tube.
Well, like a general slingshot from
You like Daisy
Walmart?
tubes?
Huh?
True Mark or Daisy or
Like regular
Yeah,
tubes.
well, the
Walmart?
Marksman,
Craftsman.
Saunders, True Mark.
Saunders comes out with tubes on them. And my buddy, I got some tourniquet bands from New York once. I ordered them. I got 100. It's 27,006. And they shot excellent. I've not been able to find no more anywhere.
Well, I got some in the back of my car. I got some white latex somebody gave me over at Multi Lakes. They're yours. Maybe, I don't know if they're the same or not. You can test the stretchability on them. I got a
Well,
whole,
most of them are not 27,000.
well, I
Some of them are as low as 19, 21, 23. That one order I got was 27, and it was the best flat bands I believe I ever got.
I know what you were saying. You were saying about originally about comparing tubes to the flats, and that the tubes, the original tubes, everybody said they were fast, and then you came up with the flats.
Yeah,
I think nowadays they
I
got some
gave
tubes
some
now.
of
They're
these
pretty
bands
good.
to Bill Herman in Texas. He went and seen Saunders. They shot him across the chronograph. Regular tubes, he comes with the slingshot, shot about 205. He shot 265 with those tourniquet bands that I gave him.
Yeah,
That's a
speed-wise.
big difference, and they're easier to pull too.
I think those new thin tubes are pretty good
We
though.
got,
Yeah.
it's coming.
Pretty good. I can pony them.
I wish Jim would get over here and talk to us about that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I have found the Chinese tubes. I love them at 10 and 15 yards, but out past 15, I'm seeing a significant drop for a given amount of pull. Do you notice? Have you
I
taken
know,
a
I
look?
can't hit shit, excuse me, I can't hit crap.
Yeah, so
I just can't shoot tubes.
Jim.
For some reason, I'm very inconsistent with it.
Yeah,
We need you.
yeah, we
Get
got
in here.
some,
We need a question about tubes.
tube expertise, please.
Lou just brought up a point that years ago, Saunders had these tubes out, and Bill Herman come up there with some tourniquet bands, and went up to Saunders, and the Saunders guys had about a 208, 210 feet per second reading. He flipped them flats on and got about a 260. Nowadays, it's kind of turned a little bit, the tube technology, right? I mean, as far as Chinese tubes, I mean, they're a lot better now, right? Speed-wise and
yeah,
stuff?
I mean, I've tried them both, and like I said, the Bill Harriman tubes, which is hygienic, you know, they're so thin, you have to cut them so short. I mean, they're accurate, no question.
And I mean, the tubes themselves, though, the smaller tubes, they're big, they're better than the old tubes, like the big ones from years ago, speed-wise and
The
everything.
ones I got
Yeah.
from New York wasn't hygienic, and they were 27,000 thick, and it was the best tourniquet band I ever got, and they shot the
were they
tank.
latex?
Huh?
Were they latex or were they?
Yeah,
The stuff I
surgical
got is the
latex,
white, the white.
surgical latex,
All right,
no
all right.
law.
I want to, when it's over with, I'll get back with you. Does MJ need somebody?
Tubes, I went out hunting one day, your
I
son-in-law
got a tarp if he wants to borrow.
had the round band, tubular band. He couldn't hardly shoot 60 or 70 yards, it just died. He was 10 below zero, was in Michigan. And cold weather adversely affects the tubes worse than it does the flat band.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
the 2040s, you know, when it was winter,
Yeah.
they just fall on their face.
That's all I wanted to ask you.
But we,
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
when I started testing them, it must have been a little bit cooler than what I originally had thought, because I was getting, like with the 1842 is what I call the GT, the shortest length, I was getting like 193, 194. But then, when the weather got warm, with the GTs, I started losing accuracy, and it felt like it was harder to pull it back, so I brought the Crony out again. Well, the GTs were up over 220 from 190 something in the cooler weather. So I went back to the sport length, which is the longest length that I've been selling. And the accuracy came right back, but still with the sport, it was down around 180, and it was over 200 in the warm weather.